Hi everyone, welcome to today's session. So my name is Noreen, I'm from Athena Analytics, and I hope you're all enjoying the impressive lineup of speakers so far, sharing their journeys and listening to the wide range of topics at the John McCarthy Summer School as part of the innovative program at RDI Hub Kilorglin. So as I said, my name is Noreen. I'm delighted to speak to you today and tell you a little bit about my story and my role lead data scientist at Athena Analytics, a Kerry-based edtech startup, and its application of AI to a long-standing problem in the Irish education system. I'm especially proud to be speaking to you today from Kerry. So as a Kerry-born woman myself, and having studied and lived, abroad for a number of years in various places from as far as South Korea and South Africa to London and then back to Dublin, it gives me really great pleasure and pride to be working in such an exciting field in such an exciting time from my home county, the best county, and be part of the emerging culture of innovation and AI in the Southwest. So as I mentioned, I'm currently working as the lead data scientist at Athena Analytics. So Athena Analytics was founded in 2017 by our founder, Emily Brick, and it's now a leader in the business of data-driven academic tracking in Ireland. So we have, around 300 secondary schools at this stage using the platform. And the mission at Athena, is pretty special, and that is to level the playing field for students at secondary school level and ensure that no one falls through cracks in a busy and sometimes messy school system. So we provide a tool for schools to track students' performance over the course of their secondary school career and to actually use machine learning and make use of the large historical data sets out there to make predictions about each student's potential in their various subjects. So the core offering then, at Athena Analytics is what we call the Athena Tracker. And so that was born, solely out of a need that was consistently being voiced by schools as Emily, our founder, initially worked with them for producing other kind of ad hoc reports for schools, to do with the Leaving Certificate. And so really the flagship product at Athena now started with that, that voiced problem. And that was that schools wanted to detect in real time the moment when a student deviated below their academic potential. So rather than retrospectively and, maybe regrettably looking back on the student's performance, when it became too late to make a difference, the Athena Tracker tool, aims to do, that kind of tracking and monitoring in real time. And I suppose one of the most striking observations that, struck Emily at that time while she was working with schools was, noticing that it wasn't just the high-performing students, so the student that everyone knows, is going to do great in the Leaving Cert, or indeed, the struggling students that would benefit, from this type of solution. There's often that kind of, neglected and forgotten middle strata of learners. So they don't have, scores that are obviously high or obviously low enough to be, taken notice by the teachers or the principal and called into the office. And so with Emily's background in statistics and maths, so from, her degrees, and also her time spent in industry, she responded to this, this gap, this problem by creating the first iteration of the Athena Tracker tool. And it was truly, an MVP based on a clear, unfulfilled needs from schools, and one that was powered by the latest, and greatest techniques in the field of machine learning. And I suppose from that starting point, the team then grew up around that core technology. So hiring key members of the technology team, so both on the infrastructure side and the front end side, data science members to support the statistical modeling, as well as numerous other hires in customer support due to the large number of schools that were all of a sudden, very interested in adopting this software. And so over time, then, the product has really evolved and it continues to be agile in terms of the roadmap, based again on the, the reactive changes that we're seeing now in the schools' curriculums, especially during the pandemic. So at the heart of the Athena Tracker tool, it's a machine learning algorithm that uses and extracts patterns from large historical data sets of student performance records to estimate how likely a student is to perform in their next exam sitting for a particular subject. And it initially creates that kind of baseline expectation then, for a student based on their aptitude test when they first get into school, so in their first year, and then it adapts over time as it's fed more and more information based on, more exams that the student is sitting, and we have more data for the student. So we use a suite of machine learning models to get that estimation for a student's potential. So in what we call ensemble learning. So that's, quite a familiar technique in the world of machine learning. And I suppose the challenges of modeling, in this type of scenario, there may be somewhat intuitive, and that is that, we don't want to pigeonhole students by underestimating their potential so that they never push themselves. And I suppose as a fix for this kind of dilemma, what we did was we undertook, careful UI UX analysis of kind of how and where we position a student's expectation on the tool, visually, and also making sure that we don't present the model expectation until after the student has sat the exam, so that they're not, overly focused on a particular, hitting a particular number, before the exam, and that it becomes then, a kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, and in that way, the model would be indirectly influencing them. So we didn't want to do that. And so in that sense as well, unlike probably most of the AI products in the marketplace out there now, we are very happy, to be wrong. And if a student exceeds a model expectation, and so our model has made an incorrect prediction, that's a very easy pill for us to swallow. Because it comes back again to our overriding, stance that the model really is just there as a guiding tool for teachers to be used alongside, their own years of experience and professional judgment, and definitely not as a substitute. In my own role at Athena, one of my key charges is to communicate how our machine learning model works to, often a non-technical audience, at schools, such as teachers and guidance counselors. And so we really aim to translate, the various concepts and innards of the model in a very accessible way to our end users, in order so that we can build trust, and also to get feedback and improve upon our model and its predictions. And so those working in the field of machine learning will know that, all models are wrong, but some models are useful. And we really want to build, robust, reliable models that benefit students. And we always remind ourselves of that overriding mission, and that it is to help students reach their own, individual potential along their own individual paths, and to flag those students that might be needing that extra support, in a kind of a meaningful point in time where we can do something about it. And so we want to go beyond the standard measures of kind of model evaluation in terms of accuracy to see how good a job we're doing. So our goal, definitely isn't to obtain, 99% model accuracy. We're much more interested in helping all segments of that student population. And some of you might have heard of what's called the McNamara fallacy. So it's kind of a phenomenon based on Robert McNamara, who was, former U.S. Secretary of Defense during the Vietnam War, and his kind of misguided data-centric strategy for analyzing, who was winning the war based on the daily numbers of fallen soldiers on each side. So kind of really interesting kind of phenomenon, but it alludes to the costly obsession that we sometimes have with metrics and targets that are not really, they don't really capture a situation in the real world, and they're not really meaningful ways to look at the final outcome of a situation. So it can be quite, seductive, but it is ultimately kind of a bit of a delusion that all the complexity of a real world issue or a real world problem can be boiled down, to black and white, to ones and zeros. And so at Athena Analytics, we're fully conscious that, the student journey and their academic and overall well-being, it can't be boiled down to just numbers. And that's why we are such strong advocates of using the tracker as a form of augmented intelligence. So one that complements teachers and guidance counselors their day job and their own expertise and their own judgments. And I suppose one of the most fascinating byproducts and probably the unintended consequences of the tracker has been, the ability of the tool to uncover issues, other than kind of academic impediments, that may have impacted a student's performance. For example, we received a number of reports that from teachers, who have actually open dialogues with various students, if they have underperformed that in terms of below their potential, to find out, that students, maybe something was going on at home with them, or they were having difficulties with their mental health, And I suppose the idea that a purely objective and statistical tool could actually spark that conversation and help students, overcome personal and social challenges. So not just the kind of, overemphasis on the academic sphere, that was really quite unexpected, in a very good way, and very fulfilling for us, to work on a product, that could uncover that, but also for the teachers, who really are at the educational coalface, on the front lines, trying to build up students, academically, but also holistically, as we are as they try and build up the next generation of thinkers and leaders. And I suppose coming from my own experience and my own school days, I could have only wished for a tool like Athena Tracker to help me on my academic path and where I wanted to be. And so that's why it's such a privilege, I think, to work on a product that has such a wide reach and a great impact on students of Ireland, and to do so with an international team that are also just as passionate as I am about this mission. That's all from me today, guys. I hope you found this very useful, and please do reach out to me with any questions or my colleagues, and feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. I hope you enjoy the rest of today. Thank you.